Hello students, welcome back to the session. Today we are going to discuss the chapter Semiconductor Devices. So the question arises, what are semiconductors? Let us try to understand this particular chapter from the name, what exactly is involved in semiconductor. So what are semiconductors? The name only suggests that this is something which is half conductor. So then half is what? Remaining half is what? That is why in order to understand semiconductor, we have to go little back and try to understand what are conductors and insulators. Well students, in your lower classes you have studied conductors as those substances which allow passage of electrons or those which conduct electricity, and insulators are those substances which do not conduct electricity. Well, here little bit of modification if you do, because you are now in class 12th. So let us try to modify this definition which you have studied in lower classes, correct? So now let us modify it. Conductors are those substances which allow electric current to pass through at room temperature. Please understand this. Why do we say this? And insulators are those substances which do not conduct electricity at room temperature. Now what is the necessity of adding this at room temperature, you will say? Very right. Necessity, let us understand. See students, what are insulators? You will say that substances which do not conduct electricity. Okay. Then let us think this way. If I ask you, name one perfect insulator, then some of the students say that rubber. Okay. Some of the students said glass. Well, in that case, I wonder, can molten rubber be taken as insulator? Can molten glass be taken as insulator? No. Molten glass is a conductor. Molten rubber is a conductor. Now, one set of students said wood. What about wood? Very good. I appreciate this. Now you go on giving energy to wood. What will happen? When you go on giving energy to wood, that piece of wood will get burnt, and what you get is a charcoal, burnt wood, and charcoal conducts electricity. See. So what we see in the three examples, what we observe is, when the temperature of that body is extremely high, then when it touches the fire point of it, when the flash point of the substance is crossed, there is some change in the unit cell of that particular substance, and the substance suddenly starts conducting. So that is the reason why we need to add at room temperature. So when we say that it is at high temperature, definitely it is not room temperature. That is the reason why students always add this statement to it. Conductors are those substances which conduct electricity at room temperature, and insulator again which do not at room temperature, because insulators, when you heat them, when you give energy to them, then there is a stage where the internal structure collapses, and due to which free electrons are liberated, and the free electrons become free, the electrons become free and they start conducting. So semiconductors are what? Semiconductors are those substances which behave as insulator at room temperature, but they become conductor at a higher temperature. That is exactly what is a semiconductor. So semiconductors, they at room temperature, they are insulators. But at higher temperature, they are conductors. So what we can say, insulators are those substances which, see, semiconductors are those substances which will behave as insulator at room temperature, but as you increase their temperature, they start behaving as conductors. So basically, semiconductors, they function at a little higher temperature, not very high temperature, little higher temperature. How exactly this is obtained? We will see this. Now, semiconductors are of two types. If you see, what are the types of semiconductors? So, types of semiconductor. When we say types of semiconductor, we are having two types. One is known as intrinsic semiconductor and one is known as extrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductor. So intrinsic semiconductors are naturally occurring. Naturally occurring semiconductors are classified as intrinsic semiconductor. Say for example, silicon, germanium, they are naturally occurring semiconductors. They are known as intrinsic semiconductor. Extrinsic semiconductors are the semiconductors which are basically intrinsic semiconductor, but the conductivity of the intrinsic semiconductor is increased by intentional addition of impurities. We will see that. First, let us discuss why silicon is behaving as a semiconductor. How it is behaving as a semiconductor. So, to understand this, let us see what is the crystal structure of silicon. Silicon is a member of 14th group if you see in the periodic table. So silicon atomic number is 14, configuration is 284. I guess this is how you write the electronic configuration. So if we see the number of electrons present in the outermost shell of silicon atom, we find there are 4 electrons. So if you try to see the network of silicon atom, it's a tetrahedral network. So let us try to trace the structure. Observe this, it is like this. This is one silicon atom. It has 1 electron, 1 electron, 1 electron, 1 electron. 4 electrons. Now it will be bonded to another silicon atom which has 4 electrons. Correct? Now see, this will be bonded to another silicon atom. You can take it this way. See, this is how it is bonded. These are the, we can say, this is how it is. Now observe, what happens is, when we take it at room temperature, is there a free electron in this network? There is no free electron in this network. There is absolutely no free electron in this network. So how can it conduct? So at room temperature, this network is not having any free electron That is why this arrangement is behaving as an insulator. So silicon at room temperature will behave as an insulator. Now suppose we increase the temperature. If you increase the temperature, now what happens is, every silicon to silicon bond has some bond dissociation energy. Suppose that we supply energy which is greater than the bond dissociation energy of silicon-silicon bond, then what will happen? That particular covalent bond will dissociate. When the bond dissociates, what do you expect? What we expect is, this bond breaks, or say this electron becomes free. When this electron becomes free, the bond breaks. So here what will be there? That electron is lost. When the electron is lost from a place, a positive charge is generated. See here. So what we are getting, when the bond dissociates, one of the electron breaks away from it. So this electron is free now, it is mobile. This will contribute towards conduction. So at higher temperature, free electrons are available, it starts conducting. That is exactly what we say. At higher temperature, they are conductors. This electron which is produced as a result of dissociation of the bond is responsible for the conduction property of the same silicon. See the peculiar behavior? At room temperature, there was no mobile or free electrons present. But as we increase the temperature, what has happened? The dissociation of the bond takes place and free electrons are liberated. It starts conducting. This is exactly what is the behavior of intrinsic semiconductor. And that is why silicon is naturally occurring, because this kind of peculiar behavior you will not get in either 13th group elements or 15th group elements, correct? You can think it. That is exactly how we are having what is called silicon as the intrinsic semiconductor. Now observe carefully. If I say what are the types of charge carriers? See, types of charge carriers. The types of charge carriers, there are two types of charge carriers. There are two types of charge carriers. See, one is positive charge here, the second is negative charge. Two types of charge carriers, we will say negatively charged electrons. This is one type. The second type is positively charged. They are known as holes. So two type of charge carriers are there. One is positively charged holes. They are known as, in the language of semiconductors, we call it as holes, and negatively charged electron. See, what happens is, as we supply energy here, observe carefully, this electron will get free. Now out here what will happen? A positively charged hole is punched. This positively charged hole will attract the electron and it will get filled. It will get filled, so this positive charge will not be there. Which means that at any instant of time, there will be only one, this electron has filled it. So only this is present and this is present. So what we can say, at any instant of time, only one electron hole pair will be present. If only one electron is present, free electron, if one hole is present, then one can imagine what could be the strength of current it will constitute? One electron. So since the strength of current that will be contributed by a single electron is very small, that is why we say that the conductivity of intrinsic semiconductor is very, very less. Because its conductivity, see this, the reason is this, and observe, electrons are moving this way, holes are moving this way. And that is exactly what we are using in electrical circuits. If you remember, you might have drawn circuit diagrams, right? And how exactly are we showing the direction of conventional current? We are showing the direction from positive to negative, right? And what is the direction if the electrons are moving? Negative to positive, which means that the direction of conventional current is opposite to the direction of movement of electrons. Observe here. Electrons are moving this way, holes are moving this way, they are in opposite direction. So, virtually speaking, whole current, the current which is because of the holes, that is whole current, is conventional current. Electronic current is the current which is because of the mobile electrons which are present here, that is the electronic current. Observe, electronic current and the whole current are in opposite direction. This is what we can also confirm here. This is the behavior of silicon as semiconductor. Now, in order to increase the conductivity of semiconductor, how to increase the conductivity? Increase the number of charge carriers. If we increase the number of charge carriers, then the amount of charge in motion, coulombs, it will increase and the strength of current will increase. So in this case, on its own, it is not possible to increase the conductivity or the number of charge carriers. It is not at all possible to increase the number of charge carriers on its own. So this gave rise to what is called extrinsic semiconductor. So what we are doing here is, because we know there are two type of charge carriers. Now what I am trying to do is, in order to increase the conductivity of this piece, it doesn't matter really which kind of charge carrier you are increasing. Whichever one you increase, conductivity increases, strong current will be there. So it is possible that we put some impurities intentionally in silicon crystal to increase either number of electrons in it or number of holes in it. And this gave rise to what is called extrinsic semiconductor. Go a little one step ahead, types of extrinsic semiconductor. Types of extrinsic semiconductor, we can say P type, and another is N type. What does P stand for? Positive. What does N stand for? Negative. And what do they represent? P and N represent the charge carriers in majority. That is to say, majority charge carriers. See here, holes are equal in number to electron. So majority is which one? None. Second thing, the charge carriers which we have seen here in intrinsic semiconductor, they are known as minority charge carriers. Remember that. Minority charge carriers are the charge carriers which are produced by the bond dissociation in intrinsic semiconductor. In an intrinsic semiconductor, by the dissociation of the bond, what charge carriers we are getting, they are known as minority charge carriers. Got it? Now, majority charge carriers, the name only suggests everything. Majority charge carrier means those charge carriers which are in abundance. How did they become abundant? they became abundant by a process, phenomena known as doping. Doping is what? Doping is a process in which intentional addition of impurities happen. This is a pure intrinsic semiconductor, silicon crystal. In this, I will be adding intentionally some impurities. Why do we call impurities? Because they are not silicon, they are different from silicon. So we are adding impurities. What is our intention there? Our intention is to increase the conductivity. How can we increase conductivity? Increase the number of charge carriers. How many types of charge carriers are there? 2 types. That is why intrinsic semiconductors are of 2 types, depending on which type of charge carrier is in abundance. Now, let us see what is p-type semiconductor. Okay, so p-type semiconductor means, in p-type semiconductor, the positively charged holes are the majority charge carriers. Which are the majority charge carriers? Positively charged holes. They are in majority. How can we achieve that? In order to get positive charge means that one electron should be deficient. So select those species which are electron deficient. Now you will say electron deficient, how to decide? Very good question should come into your mind. We see that silicon has 4 electrons in the outermost shell. Suppose I select an element which will have 3 electrons in the outermost shell. If there are 3 electrons in the outermost shell, then with respect to that impurity atom, one hole will be generated, because with what the 4th electron will form a bond. So, in order to prepare p-type semiconductor, what we are doing is, we are adding impurities that belong to, in p-type, holes are majority charge carriers. They are majority charge carriers. This is first point. Second point, you are adding 13th group element. Thirteenth group elements are added as impurities in the old representation of group, third group. 13th group elements will be added, like say for example aluminium. If you add aluminium, what we can have is, there will be 3 electrons. Now with every 1 atom of aluminium added as impurity, 1 hole will be associated. With every 1 atom, please concentrate and try to think now. With every 1 atom, we are having 1 electron, or you can take those things. See, this is the configuration of aluminium, na? So 1 electron with every one, like say for example, if I say here an aluminium is sitting, let us say this is an impurity which is aluminium. So 1 bond is free, so a hole is there. Now with every 1 atom of aluminium, 1 hole is there. Just imagine if you add 1 mole of aluminium. Use mole concept. 1 mole of aluminium will be how many grams? I guess 27 grams. So if I add 27 grams of aluminium into silicon, the 27 grams that we added will have how many holes? 6.023 into 10 power 23 holes will be associated. Just imagine, with 1 mole of aluminium added, what is the kind of conductivity increase we can observe? tremendous increase in the conductivity, tremendous increase in the strength of the current can be noted. And that is the reason why in practical appliances that you come across, all the electronic devices today, we are using these semiconductors, but we are using extrinsic, we are not using intrinsic, because the conductivity, the current is very poor there. But then extrinsic directly cannot be conceived, because unless until we know the drawback of this, how to come to this. So that is why first we have understood intrinsic semiconductor, and then if the drawback of this, we have put up in extrinsic. So the conductivity is increased enormously by doping. Okay, so extrinsic semiconductors are also known as sometimes doped semiconductors. Okay, this is about p-type. So p-type means majority charge carriers are positively charged holes. And how to prepare? We are preparing by adding 13th group elements, electron deficient species as impurity. Now you will say, sir, why did you select aluminium? There are so many members in the 13th group. Very good. Such questions, I appreciate such thoughts, such questions coming into mind. And definitely being the students of physics, definitely such questions should come into your mind. Yes, coming to the question, yes. It is possible that 13th group will contain many elements, but why did we select only aluminium? It is because, observe here, if I add an impurity here which does not have similarity with silicon, then can this aluminium or the impurity atom bind with the other similar silicon atoms? It will not bind. Because of this reason only, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to select an impurity atom which will have similar properties as the silicon. When we talk of similar properties means what? Say for example, size of the impurity atom should be similar to silicon, similar. Otherwise what happens? It will stand away. It will stand apart from the crowd. Let us come to the next. If I say aluminium, the interatomic forces which are present between silicon and silicon, aluminium also should generate a similar kind of force. If it is not able to generate the similar kind of force, then possibly all the impurities will set apart, all silicon will come apart, that whole crystal will collapse. See, then same thing. See, all these features, if it matches with the impurity atom, then only it can replace silicon, otherwise it cannot replace. And monolithic bonding between the silicon and aluminium cannot be established. And that is the reason why we have selected aluminium, because again you see 3 shells here, 3 shells here, size similar and properties also little bit close. That is why aluminium is preferred to other elements in the same group. Is it clear now why we are selecting the particular element? There is a reason for it. It's not that all the members are there, we can take up anything and we'll try to bind. If you have understood how the alloy formation happens, in your lower classes you might have studied, alloy is nothing but mixing of molten metals. Metal in the liquid form, we try to mix them. Now suppose that the two metals which you are trying to mix, their interatomic, intermolecular forces are not at all similar. Do you think that they will try to bind with each other? They will not. In the liquid phase you will find they are meeting, they are mixing, but the moment you cool, all the similar particles will set apart. This is what happens, and they will separate out. This is how mixing. So for proper mixing, monolithic bonding between the two dissimilar atoms or molecule should occur. Then only proper mixing will take place. Okay, this is exactly how we identify which atom impurity can be added there. Let us come to N-type. What is N-type? N-type semiconductor, N refers to negative. So here electrons are the majority charge carriers. They are the majority charge carriers. Electrons are the majority charge carriers. Now here what we will add? Out here we are supposed to add electron rich species, like say for example we are adding something 15th group element. 15th group elements are added. 15th group elements means 285. So phosphorus you can say. So 4 electrons and 5th electron is free here. See, 4 electrons will form bond with silicon, right? And 1 electron will be free. This means that with every one atom of phosphorus, 1 electron will be free. 1 electron will be free. So with 1 mole of phosphorus, 31 grams. 1 mole of phosphorus, 31 grams. With 31 grams of phosphorus added to silicon, how many electrons will be added? 6.023 into 10 power 23 electrons. We can convert that into coulombs. So you can imagine what is the kind of conductivity increase can happen. We can calculate what is the increase in the strength of the current thereby that can be achieved. See, this is the benefit of doping. And clearly we can say that extrinsic semiconductor stands apart from intrinsic with respect to conductivity. Second most important, intrinsic semiconductor is made from extrinsic semiconductor. Remember that. Extrinsic semiconductor is made from intrinsic semiconductor. It is not made from any piece of wood. It is basically an intrinsic semiconductor in which impurities are intentionally added to increase the conductivity. So basically it is an intrinsic semiconductor. Okay, so N-type 15th group, I hope you can make out now. So any type of charge carrier more in number is equally good to behave as extrinsic semiconductor. Now this is exactly what we have. So again here phosphorus we are selecting. There are 3 shells, again coming to the same similar properties. Interatomic intermolecular forces should be identical. The kind of bond which it can generate should be similar to the bond between silicon and silicon. So these are the different features which have to be kept in mind when we go for doping. Now, once we have understood what exactly is a p-type semiconductor, what exactly is an n-type semiconductor, there are 2 different kinds. Now let us see if a p-type semiconductor and an n-type semiconductor are joined together, then what is the result? So the result that we get is known as a p-n junction. So what is a p-n junction? See, the name only suggests we have a p-type semiconductor and we have an n-type semiconductor. So the next is called p-n junction. How to create a junction? See this? Let us say this is p-type, let us say this is n-type. Here we have one terminal, here one terminal. This is a PN junction. Now what happens when a p-type crystal is brought closer to the n-type? Now observe, we know that P means positive, so there will be positively charged holes in it. This is what we know, right? Now what is n-type? N is nothing but negative, which means that this will be having negative electrons as the charge carriers, right? This is what we can say. Now observe, what happens is, from this region positively charged holes will diffuse and stay close to the junction. Similarly, some of the electrons will diffuse from this N and they'll come closer to this particular junction. See, they'll remain here. And what we find is, we find that in this case region is created. See this, there is a region created this much. See, observe here, a region is created wherein opposite charges are present on the either side of the junction. This will happen because you have one piece which is p-type, you have another piece which is n-type. The moment you join the P and N, definitely diffusion of the charges from one region to the other region will happen, because neutralization, tendency to neutralize. So what we can say, a region is created on the either side of junction. This is known as charge depletion zone. It appears that the charges are not present in that region. See the name only, charge depletion. It appears that in this region all charges are depleted, they are not present. It is not like that. Second thing, you will say, why other charges did not diffuse? Very right. See, why other charges did not diffuse is, if these charges try to go across, these like charges will repel them, because only highly energetic charge carriers were able to cross over the junction. Remember that. Only energetic, highly energetic charge carriers were able to cross over the junction on either side. Energetic charge carriers from P side holes shifted to the N region. Highly energetic negatively charged carriers, electrons, shifted across the junction to the P region. Now what has happened is, in that region the two positive and negative charges, they are bound, they are not free. Observe, they are bound. Since they are bound, can we say they are mobile? No. That is why we say charge depletion. It appears that in that region there are no mobile charges. Remember that. There are charges, but there are no mobile charges. All the charges are bound. They are not free to move. That is why they cannot contribute towards conduction. Now these charges which are present here as well as here, they are less energetic than the charges present in the charge depletion zone in the form of bound charges. So if these charges try to diffuse across the junction, they will be strongly repelled back. Similarly, if charges, negative charges try to diffuse, these electrons will repel them back, which means that when diffusion of the highly energetic charge carriers takes place across the junction, an equilibrium is established after some time. And what you will see then, you will see the structure something like this. Now what you will see there, this is positively charged, okay. positive, so here positive charges will be present. Okay, this is negative, so here negative charges will be present, they are bound. This is your width of the charge depletion zone. This is how it is established. So what we get is width, this is called width of the charge depletion zone. No more further diffusion of charge across the junction happens once the width of the charge depletion zone is established. Then we say equilibrium is attained, no further movement of charge will happen. So now in this situation, no further movement of the charge can happen. This is exactly what we have as formation of PN junction. Now this PN junction, they are having two terminals, some places you will call it as diode also. So in this, if I use this in devices, then observe the charge carriers have no tendency to move. The charge carriers are not having any tendency to move. Then where is the question of conduction? How can you achieve conduction? How can this behave as a conductor? So for this particular piece to behave as a conductor, we have to place this particular piece in an arrangement with an external source. When an external source is connected to this PN junction, then the behavior of PN junction will depend upon how you have connected the external source to the PN junction. If no source is connected in this PN junction and stability or equilibrium is attained wherein the charge carriers are not able to move any further, and the width of this thing is called width. This is width of, so width of charge depletion zone gets defined. Once the width of the charge depletion zone is defined, after that no further movement of charge carriers can take place, and this is exactly how a PN junction would behave.